So, Romans 8:28. And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are called according to his purpose. All right? That's it. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that. And we all know that God takes all the circumstances of our lives, all the bad things, all the good things, all the messed up things, all the things that we screwed up, all the things that other people have done to screw us up, and he somehow was able to take them all and put them together and make something amazing out of it, you know? And oftentimes we don't understand why things happen, and we don't understand how things can end up good, and we look at a situation and we're like, how will anything good ever possibly come out of this? And it's very hard sometimes, and that's a test of our faith, because, oftentimes we just don't see it. And this is an idea that God kind of put into my mind when my aunt, recently she was diagnosed with a brain tumor, and she has 6 kids, the oldest of which is like 15, the youngest is like 8 months. And right when we found out, this was about 3 or 4 months ago, I went to their house, and I had received, from working in a slaughterhouse, I received an authentic arrow that was made by a Native American, made in the traditional way that Native Americans made their arrows. And I wanted to, that was kind of like a really special thing to me, so I gave it to one of my cousins, Caleb. He's 12 years old or something like that. And I looked at this arrow and I said, man, I got to tell these kids something. I mean, what do you say in situations like that? And God gave me this thought, and I know it was God, and so I'm just going to share that with you, because it has to do with this verse. And you can look and say, how can cancer ever have a positive outcome? How can that work together for good? And I'm going to illustrate to you through this example of an arrow, okay? There are several components to an arrow, the traditional way that Native Americans used to make it. First of all, you have... First of all, you got this stick. Okay? Now, that's just a regular stick, right? Probably pine, or oak, or whatever tree. Okay? Now think about it like this. For that stick to be there, people don't usually cut down, and I worked in lumber, people don't cut down small trees. They're a waste of money, they're a waste of your time. When you cut down a tree, it's usually got to be about 50 to 70 years old, about that big around. So imagine a whole big tree that has been growing for 50, 60, 70 years, that's produced all these fruit and has produced oxygen and done all these good things. And we might say, yeah, it's a good tree. And imagine that someone cut that tree down just for that stick. Now, I know it was used for something else, but let's just, for this illustration's sake, let's say that the sole purpose of that tree was that stick. And we look and we say, man, that's not fair. Because you have 70 years of growth. It was a good tree, never did anything wrong. It filtered the atmosphere, it produced oxygen, it gave fruit, it made everything more beautiful, and we cut it down for a stick. That's not fair. The next component is the turkey feathers on the back. And we all know this. Alright? You have, I don't really that roar. You have the feathers on the back. Okay? Now imagine that a turkey, a live creature with a mom and a dad, and it had a life and it was grazing, and someone had to kill that turkey and make it suffer and put it through all that pain just to get a couple of feathers for an arrow. And we say, man, that is really not fair. I mean, how can that possibly work out? How is that a good thing? The next component is the arrowhead. Alright? It's usually made out of a flint, which is a rock. And what I like to think, or just for this illustration's sake, let's just pretend, there's a lot of rocks out there, and I'm sure that not since this world was created, not all of them have been touched by somebody. Alright, so let's just pretend that this particular piece of flint has been sitting around in the mountain for about 6,000 years, or however long creation's been, and it's just been minding its own business there, sitting around, and someone come and had to wait 6,000 years. Now this is a positive because it had nothing else to do, but it waited 6,000 years for someone to pick it up and do something with it. And it said, man, that was a long time to wait. And it's not fair. Why couldn't someone do something with it sooner? Why did that have to happen? Why 6,000 years? It's a really long time. So we have the arrowhead. And then the last component is actually, a lot of people don't know this, but in order to tie the turkey feathers and to tie the flint, you need something to put them on the stake. And what the Native Americans used to use is deer Achilles tendon. Now the Achilles tendon is this tendon right here on the back of your ankle. And deer, and it's a very, very, very strong material that your body grows, and you can pull it and you can actually dry it, and it becomes almost like a glue stringy thing, and you can actually use it as a rope to tie things with it, and it's very, very durable. So that's what they used to tie that and the turkey feathers, okay? That's a deer Achilles tendon. And a deer had to die for that. You can't just, pull them out without even, someone had to go hunt that deer. That deer had to go through a lot of fear and pain, and, being chased around in the forest is not a fun thing. It was probably scared. It got shot, or it got, whatever. And then it got butchered. And then that deer, all for an Achilles tendon. And we might say, man, that is so not fair. What a waste. We killed a life, we scared it to death, we chased it, all for the deer Achilles tendon. So we're looking at all these components of this arrow, and we have suffering, unfairness, a lot of waiting, more suffering and death. What's the point? Why? How can all these bad things, how can they all come together for good? However, one thing that all these components, if they were cognizant and if they were able to, realize what's going on, one thing they could never realize is to see how the guy who's making the arrow, the master, or in our case God, is able to take all these components, all this suffering, put them together into something like this. And now imagine this arrow. Imagine that we create this arrow. What could one person do with this arrow? I can tell you that this arrow, used in the right hand, at the right time, could change the world. Imagine if somebody would have used this arrow to shoot Hitler before he started World War II. What would have happened? Imagine if somebody would have used this arrow to kill Osama bin Laden before 9/11. How would the world have changed? Imagine if someone would have used this arrow to, or in the opposite end of the spectrum, to kill Mother Teresa and none of that good stuff. All that change can come from this little arrow. So I look at my life and I say, man, I don't understand all the bad things that are happening. I don't understand how they can ever work together for good. But I believe that there will be a time. It's going to be a short time, because this arrow probably did not even realize its own value until that split second that it was being used. Until that very last minute when its purpose was fulfilled, and it could go, oh, that makes sense now. We don't know why the bad stuff happens to us. We don't understand why all this suffering and all this pain. We don't know how it works, and we cannot see the big picture of how God is putting everything together. But God has always the right hands, and God knows the right time, and God knows how to use the suffering and the pain that we have to go through, and He knows how to turn it into a positive, and He can change the world through it. And that's just a thought that I want to share with you guys this morning about an arrow in this Bible verse. So, thank you for your patience.
Okay, thank you.